Welcome to the Classic Soap Operas podcast, where we dig into the incredible history of daytime and primetime TV. So, back in the 1980s, television was all about glitz, glamour, and a whole lot of backstabbing. And there was this one show. It had every single ingredient to become the next primetime mega-hit. But instead, it turned into one of television's most fascinating vanishing acts. Today, we are flinging open the doors to the scandalous and very short-lived world of Berrengers, where anything and everything can be bought or sold for the right price. I mean, come on, that was the show's incredible tagline. It just screams luxury and, let's be honest, total moral ambiguity. It was all set behind the fancy doors of a New York department store run by this powerful dynasty. It just perfectly bottled that high-fashion, high-stakes vibe of the 1980s, where power was absolutely everything. Okay, so let's get into it. To really get Berrengers, you have to get what the TV world was like in the mid-80s. Primetime was just ruled by these huge, glamorous soap operas. I'm talking about shows like Dallas and Dynasty. They weren't just popular, they were massive cultural events. And right into the middle of all that steps Berrengers, totally set up to be the next great television dynasty. I mean, on paper, this show was a sure thing, a guaranteed smash. It was from Lorimar Productions, the absolute powerhouse studio that gave us Dallas and Falcon Crest. They knew exactly how to make this kind of show work. And the idea? Pure 80s gold, a super rich family fighting over their department store empire. They even filmed at the iconic Barney's in New York, which just added this layer of realness to the already lavish sets and high-fashion wardrobe. Seriously, it had all the right stuff. But you know, a soap opera is absolutely nothing without a deliciously messy family at its center. So let's head to the main floor and meet the Berrengers themselves. At the head of it all is Simon Berrenger, played by the amazing Sam Wanamaker. Now, Simon is the devious, ruthless patriarch. He's a widower who runs his business and his family with a total iron fist. But, you know, under that tough guy act was a man who, at the end of the day, really did love his family, warts and all, as the creators put it. And right at the heart of all the conflict, you've got the two sons. First, there's Paul. He's the heir, the store president, stuck in this miserable, loveless marriage while he's secretly in love with his own vice president. And then you have Billy, the younger son. He's the likable one, kind of like Bobby Ewing from Dallas. He works in PR, but behind the scenes, he's battling some really serious drinking and gambling addictions. The stage was perfectly set for some epic sibling rivalry. And of course, you can't have drama without the powerful women circling these men. You've got Babs, the daughter. She's a former party girl who's just desperate to prove she's more than that to her father. Then there's Gloria, Paul's wife, who was described as this nasty and conniving socialite who is clinging to the Berrenger name for dear life. And finally, there's Shane Bradley, the super competent vice president who was having that secret affair with her boss, Paul. Oh yeah, the battle lines were drawn from day one. With a family this complicated, you just knew the plot lines were going to be completely over the top. And this is where Berrengers really leaned into the excess of that 80s soap formula. So here's the recipe for total primetime chaos. First, you start with Babs, the daughter, falling for a window dresser who can't keep it in his pants. Then you add a store model who starts seducing the patriarch Simon. Then you mix in an ambitious comptroller who's secretly trying to sabotage the whole family from the inside. And for the grand finale, a mobster shows up who might just be Simon's secret love child with a claim to the entire empire. This was primetime drama at its most wonderfully unhinged. So with a studio that only makes hits, a perfect cast, and storylines this juicy, it just feels like Berrengers should have been a monster hit, right? But it wasn't. And that brings us to the big question. What went wrong? Why did this show just become a forgotten relic instead of an 80s classic? The answer, like it so often is in television, really just came down to the numbers. Behind all that on-screen glamour, a much harsher reality was playing out. The show premiered in January 1985 to a pretty decent 11.9 million viewers. It even peaked a few weeks later. But then, the bottom just completely fell out. By the middle of February, the audience had cratered to 7.5 million. And by its final episode on March 9th, only 5.8 million people were watching. In the cutthroat world of network TV, a drop that fast is a death sentence. The cancellation was so fast, so brutal, that one whole episode, completely finished, totally ready to air, never even saw the light of day. That's what this number is. One whole hour of television just left on the cutting room floor, forever. And there you have it. After only 3 months and a dozen episodes, NBC pulled the plug. The glamorous doors of Berrenger's department store were shut for good. So in the end, Berrenger's became less of a hit and more of a cautionary tale. It's a perfect case study of how even a formula that seems like a sure thing can just fail. Was the soap opera thing just getting a little old for audiences by 1985? Did it need a single breakout star to really anchor all the chaos? Or was it just stuck in a terrible Saturday night time slot? Whatever the reason was, all those perfect pieces just didn't add up to a hit. So what's the big takeaway here? You gotta remember Berrenger's as the perfect product of its time. A really ambitious shot at capturing that 80s soap craze. It had all the tropes we love, the glamour, the betrayal, the family drama. But even with a powerhouse studio and that amazing premise, it just couldn't find an audience, and it quickly became this really fascinating piece of forgotten pop culture history. Berrenger's is still one of those great what-ifs in TV history, a show that burned so brightly, but for way too short a time. Thanks for watching this explainer. Be sure to like and subscribe, and definitely let us know in the comments, what classic soap opera should we dive into next time?